Hi, welcome back to Retro Mechanica. It's time for more Bantics.
What's going on?
Who are you?
I'm Retro Mechanica.
Ah, right, okay, it's your Retro Mechanica, yeah.
He's not Retro Mechanica. Welcome to Retro Mechanica, and I've got another special guest in the workshop. It's Carl Wilson from the YouTube channel, Carl Wilson.
That's the one.
And he also happens to be my brother, so welcome.
Thank you.
To Retro Mechanica.
It's been a long time coming.
It has.
3 years that we haven't seen each other, and here I am standing in the workshop of the infamous Retro Mechanica. And you should be watching this man because he knows all about BSA Bantams, and he's got a fantastic workshop with some beautiful machinery in it. Look at this gorgeous VMC milling machine. It's in far better condition than my Harrison one is. And not only that, I'm standing on the actual spot that Aid from AG Engineering stood, so I'm hallowed now.
Yeah, it's actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site now.
It
so
is,
he's
yeah.
very lucky to
The
be
blue
stood
plaques
there.
in the post.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
And you should be watching this guy if you're interested in machine refurbishment, particularly British machine refurbishment. The Harrison mill that he's doing at the moment is going to be absolutely fantastic. He's doing a really good rest of the job on that. So give his channel a check out, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the videos that he's making.
Yeah.
But
Thank you.
thank you very much for coming. And
It's been an absolute pleasure.
I'm glad you finally got to see the workshop.
I'm glad I have as well, because I've seen it so many times in pictures that you sent me and photographs, and it's so good to finally be standing here, and not only that, to be standing next to you as well. So that's the best thing.
Oh, thank you. It's good to see you.
I've
as
really
well, yeah.
enjoyed it.
It's been a long time.
It has been a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But finally back together.
we are.
Right, we're going to go off and have a cup of tea now.
That's
and,
a good idea.
Probably, hopefully, I'm going to pump him for information on welding BSA Bantam broken fins.
I'll do my best.
He's my welding guy. So see you soon.
All right. Thank you, and take care.
Bye for now.
Well, we're looking at the Bantam engine, and I have to say it's pretty much done, really. There are a couple of outstanding jobs. There's no gasket in the clutch cover because I'm yet to do the Kickstarter shaft O-ring conversion, and that's the one that was devised by AG Engineering. If you go and have a look at his channel, if you're interested, you'll find that job. And so I'm going to try and follow in his footsteps and do the same to my engine. Whether we'll do it this time around, I don't know. We might get it going and then go back and revisit that, but we'll see. I haven't got the tooling for the milling machine yet, but we'll see how we get on with that. And then the ignition has been fitted. We just need to fine tune the timing. And then I've ordered some screws as well because I didn't have them for the points cover. What was the points cover? This was actually missing from the engine when I got the bike, so I had to find one. So that'll be going on. And then I've ordered some screws as well for the super cover, which goes on the outside here. Once the ignition cover's on, this goes on like that. So I've just got these bolts here holding the stator plate. There's two bolts that come out and go through the cover. So I've got them in temporarily. So that's it really. But what we do need is a carburetor. So I thought we'd have a look at that next. Strip the carburetor down, have a look at it, get it cleaned up, and see what we need to do. So I think that will be our next job. Well, here we are looking at our carburetor for the D7 Bantam. I'll try not to knock the camera over. Straight off we can see that it's an Amal carburetor. I know some people pronounce it Amal. That's a matter of preference, obviously. I did do a little bit of reading into the history of the company and in some of my reference books, and I found that it was a coming together of three automotive equipment manufacturers in the early 20th century, and they were AMAC, Brown & Barlow and Binks. And rather than compete with each other, they decided to come together under one roof, and they formed Amalgamated Equipment. So Amal being short for amalgamated, I guess that's why a lot of people pronounce it Amal. But as I say, it's a big old world. There's room for all of us, and if you want to call it Aunt Sally, we'll call it Aunt Sally. So there you go. The model is a monoblock, and the reason for that is because the float chamber is cast in one lump with the carburetor body, with a mixing chamber, and the earlier models had a separate float chamber, which was a rise and fall float. The float went that way, and then they were connected to the mixing chamber at the base of the jet by a tube. Basically, Amal decided that it would be easier to manufacture, better to maintain, a single piece carburetor, and also they wanted to employ a hinged float, a swinging float, and the reason for that was because they wanted a carburetor that they could downdraft, and you can downdraft the monoblock by up to 20 degrees. So that's a feature of this particular model. And also, and this made me chuckle a little bit when I was thinking of the Bantam, they decided that the swinging float, the hinged float, would be more resistant to cornering forces, to the gravitational forces in cornering. Possibly would choke out a conventional rise and fall float. So yeah, I had to have a little bit of a chuckle about that. I know these were fitted to much bigger bikes, but I had visions of people going for the full Freddy on a Bantam, and they probably did actually, because the Telegram boys used to ride them, and apparently they used to go hell for leather. So yeah, that's quite a chuckle. But that is sort of a potted mark and model history, and the identifying numbers are found here on the flange. So we've got 37531, and 375 came in three choke sizes. This is a 7/8. I can't remember the other two actually. I should have wrote it down, shouldn't I? But if you look up 37531, you will get D7 Bantam, because that's the build spec for this particular model. This is an earlier carburetor, because my engine's actually an earlier engine. I think it's a 62 or a 63, and my bike is a 66. I did find another number under here, and it actually does say 63, so that might be a giveaway, but I'm not entirely sure if that is the year of manufacture. Could well be. Now, operation of this carburetor by modern standards is very, very similar. In fact, pretty much identical to a lot of modern carburetors. It's a slide carb with a needle jet. We have idling controlled by an idle jet under this cover here. So that's our idle jet. Let me just turn it over. We've got these two orifices here. The smaller one is the idle intake, so that's where the idle circuit draws its air from. The second one is the compensation intake. So when we get onto the needle valve, it's sort of lower, slightly lower throttle openings, we go off the idle jet onto the needle valve, and we draw our air via this compensation inlet. And then when we get to our sort of larger 3/4 to fully open throttle position, we go on to our main jet. So yeah, very much in keeping with sort of more modern practice. We have a tickler here, and that depresses the float, just holds the float down and allows you to flood the carburetor for easier starting. And a little story, when I was a little kid, my granddad used to give me things like this to play with. He'd just fish out a carburetor from his bits box and let me play with it. So I'd be about 4 years old, and I wanted to know what this was, and he told me that it was the tickler. Now my theory was that its job was to tickle the petrol, make it laugh, and then when the petrol was laughing, it was much more likely to burn and explode in the engine. And that was my theory. Now, you know, it's 45 years later, and I've seen no convincing scientific evidence that that is not the case, so we'll stick with that. It tickles the petrol, it makes it laugh, and that gives us a more efficient combustion. So there you go, the true purpose of the tickler. So I think we've talked about it enough. We'll take it apart, we'll have a look at the various bits and pieces, we'll check it against the build spec, which I have here written down. I've got all the what a 37531 should have. So we'll check those components, because in 60 years it could have been fiddled with and things changed and messed around with. And we'll have a look at the overall condition of the carburetor and the components. So let's get some tools out and get into it. Well, we've got some tools together and ready to take our carburetor apart. Sunday best screwdrivers. I like to use good, decent quality screwdrivers on a carburetor. We don't want to be chewing up any of the screws. And a collection of spanners. Got some Whitworth spanners that were my granddad's, and this one is one of the double boost spanners, so thank you, John. We've got some BA spanners. I'm not quite sure what size the jets are going to be, but we'll see when we get in there. So I think first things, we will take off the cap, remove the slide, and we'll go from there. Get the slide and the cable out of the way, and then move on down. So let's get the it's kind of a ratchet type stop to prevent the cap from unscrewing, but I don't know if you can see, there's some nasty witness marks excuse me, already in this cap, and the thread gap looks reasonably even, so possibly not cross-threaded, but I'm struggling to think that this little ratchet's made these marks. It looks more like pliers or something like that, so we'll see what we see. Hopefully the thread's okay. Let's just take this little ratchet type thing off. You'll notice I put the blue workshop roll down. It's really good for laying out the parts. You can see them really easily. That's a little tip that I was taught during my apprenticeship. Everything we stripped down went on layers of blue workshop roll. So yeah, those threads didn't feel amazingly clever, to be honest with you. There's a bit of gunk in them, but they don't look too bad at first examination, but we'll have to check them carefully. And the slide looks a little bit worn as well. You can see that, some marking to it, some wear. Oh, not the best start, but old carburetor, so we weren't expecting miracles, were we? You can see the needle valve block in there. These carbs, you can see that sort of slotted shape opening. I think that's for an optional air slide, because you can have a choke unit for cold start. I think on the Bantam they had a strangler on the air filter, certainly on this vintage at least. But you can get a choke kit that fits in there with a cable, and yeah, there's the hole look for the cable, which I would have expected to have been blocked off if it's not in use, but maybe maybe it wasn't. Something's been lost. We'll have to check against the parts list and see what was supposed to be there. So I'm just gonna zoom you out a little bit, because I think it's difficult to keep in focus. So 1 second. There we go. Hopefully I have a better chance of following what's going on. Right, let's take the let's take the fuel union off first. I think the needle valve, the float valve sits in there. We'll have a look. Looks like a 1/4 Whitworth. It is. Oh. I did drain this carburetor down when I removed it from the bike a while ago, so hopefully there won't be any petrol. Little fibre washer on that banjo bolt looks like it's been on there forever. Oh, we've got a little plastic filter and what can only be described as matter caught in the filter mesh. No idea what that is. Fuel banjo. What size will that be, I wonder? Probably bigger than what I brought. Nope, that is a 7/16 Whitworth if you're keeping notes. Again, looks as though there's a particularly hideous fibre washer, and something just dropped out, so I get the feeling that we may have just released the float valve. There's all kinds of hideousness coming out of that fuel banjo. Let's take the float chamber cover off. Now these float chamber covers, from what I understand, because this carburetor is made from a zinc alloy, these float chamber covers tend to distort, and they no longer seal. They get over tightened and they don't seal anymore. And if you go over to AG Engineering's YouTube page, Aid, he has the method of sorting them out, making them seal again. So that's a video that's worth watching if you've got one of these carburetors. Okay, bit of corrosion, bit of white powdery deposits, but then nothing more than we expect really. We've got a gasket which actually says Amal on it, so it's a genuine gasket. It doesn't look that old, so somebody's probably been in here. They're not too distant. Ah, yeah, there he is. Can you see that? Float valve. And a little brass collar that was floating around in the float chamber, so we'll have to work out where that's come from as well. And then our float should just lift off. Doesn't look terrible. Very, very dirty. We'll take the tickler out if we've got the right size spanner here. 9/16 Whitworth. So out comes our tickler, little spring and a plunger, so we'll make sure we don't lose any of those parts. Oh, there's a little brass collar on there as well. It looks as though it's possibly swaged on, or could even be silver soldered. Okay, so that's the tickler. That's our float ball dismantled. So we'll take out our main jet now. Quarter Whitworth. Oh, that was hand tight. And again, look, very, very dished. Very dished fibre washer. Seen better days. Been reused many, many times, I would imagine. So I think we're going to need a repair kit, aren't we? And then we've got our main jet. Let's whip that out. Not quite 1/8 Whitworth. Try one of the BAs. 2BA will probably, yeah. Wasn't the perfect size though. I think we'll have to research what size they actually are. Main jet. And it is a 140, and it should be a 140, so that's a good start. And we'll take the jet holder out. Same size as the fuel union. Everything's coming apart reasonably well, nothing's over tight or terrible condition. So that's our needle valve, sorry, needle jet rather. With our main jet holder. What size have we got here? Take the glasses off, can't see a thing. Close up. 105. And I put 1055, haven't I? So I wonder if I've just wrote that down incorrectly. Quite possibly, knowing me. There we go. So that's that. Not entirely sure if we can take the nozzle out. You might just be able to see that poking up there. Not quite sure if that comes out, but we'll find out. And I think it must, because there's a screw here, which is probably securing the needle valve body into the carburetor body. So anyway, let's take the pilot jet out. What size screwdriver do we need for that? Possibly slightly larger. I might not have one. No, that one's not going to do it. Ah, we got it. Okay, pilot jet. Liberated. See if I can read the numbers on this one. I might need a magnifying glass. 25. So 25. So yeah, I think I wrote that needle jet number down wrong. I think it's 105. I don't know why I put 1055. Anyway, my mistake. So it looks as though we've got a full complement of correct jets, which is good news. Perhaps the carburetor has been taken apart and tinkered with, but never actually altered. So that's good. Take the throttle stop screw out. Don't need to worry about how many turns, because we'll just adjust it to get the throttle slide in the correct position. There we go. Literally is just a stop screw with a spring on it, so we'll keep that spring with it. And then I'm just going to wind the idle screw in, pilot screw rather, and just count how many turns out we are, and then we'll have a rough position for putting it back, unless of course it's you know, ridiculous, like 4 turns or something, which would indicate perhaps that they had running problems. So let's just see. There's a half, there's 1, there's 1.5, there's 2, there's 3. That's quite a lot. About 3 1/4, which strikes me as quite a lot. They're normally about 2.5, but Well, on the carburetors I've worked on anyway. It might be different on an Amal, I don't know. We shall study the book and find out. Doesn't look too bad, but we'll examine it in much closer detail once we've got everything nice and clean. So that's pretty much our carburetor apart. We're just going to take this screw out here and see if the needle jet body will come out. Just a little pinch screw, it's not very long. It's got a little shoulder on the end of it. I'm noticing that the camera's struggling to focus. It could be the lighting. So my apologies for that. Possibly not the greatest experience for you. Right, not entirely sure how that comes out, so I'm not going to force it. I'm going to do a little bit of research and then I will come back to you and we'll see if we can get that, if we can get the rest of that jet body out. Right guys, so that's our carburetor fully stripped down now. The jet body came out very easily. A little tap with a aluminium drift and out it came. There is a little bit of bruising, marking on the flat there. I think someone's had a spanner on it potentially, or maybe a pair of pliers, or perhaps just forced it into the carburetor body in the wrong position. But I think it'll dress out fairly easily. This stuff's quite soft zinc alloy, so they're quite easy to damage. But apart from that, I think it's fairly serviceable. What else was I going to tell you? Oh yes, needle valve's been disassembled now, so the throttle cable's been removed, and I identified the little collar that fell out of the float chamber, and that fits on the end of the hinge pin, the float hinge pin. Just, I guess, stops the float from coming all the way off the end of the hinge pin. But that's that little bit. Obviously everything needs to be cleaned. The carburetor body is in the parts washer as we speak, having a bit of a soak. I'll get everything cleaned up, figure out what we need, and then we'll come back and have a look at putting it together. Okay, right, I think we'll leave it there. I'll get a carburetor kit ordered up and get everything cleaned and figure out what we need to replace. Then I think we'll come back and put the carburetor back together. I think we're getting quite close to getting this engine running now. I'm really looking forward to it. We had a few splutters out of it when we first got the bike, but I've never heard it run properly. So yeah, that'd be great to finally get it running. I hope you enjoyed the bit of fun at the beginning of the video. My brother was here earlier in the summer, and it had been about 3 years since we'd seen each other. Between his job, my job, and COVID, the time had gone by. So it was great to see him again, and we had a bit of fun together in the workshop. We made little intros for each other's videos, as you've seen on mine, and if you go over to his channel, you can see the opposite number. So yeah, I hope you'll do that. As ever, thanks very much for spending time with me. It's very much appreciated. Thanks for all your subscriptions. We're getting a few now, so keep them coming. Thank you very much. And yeah, that's about it really. So take care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.